Welcome to the MFM Media Podcast. My name is Brandon Hartun, and I use media to tell the stories of ministries and missionaries that are having an impact for the kingdom of God all around the world. This episode is sponsored by Club 1040. You can check out all the amazing things they're doing, like planting churches, planting Bible schools, raising up leaders in the Middle East, all kinds of amazing stuff by going to their website, club1040.com. I highly recommend it. In today's podcast, we're talking to missions pastor Doug Sarver. He has an amazing testimony of what his life was like when he was young and out in the world, and how God brought him out of that and took him to where he is today, which is a missions pastor of a large church, sending people from Northwest Arkansas to every corner of the world. He's been doing missions for 40 years, and he has a lot of great stories, funny stories, impactful stories. And so I'm so honored to have him join me today in the MFM Media Studio. Well, thanks for joining me today, Doug. It's an honor to have you in the missions barn, as we call it.
Yeah.
And we have so many stories to tell and been all over the world. And we're just going to get into some of those. And I think one of the coolest stories you've shared it before is just your personal testimony. I mean, I know can you remember that far back, or?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. I took the Prevagen this morning.
Yeah, good. So for the people that are watching and don't know you, which is most of the world, I think, but no, you're in Northwest Arkansas. Obviously, you've had a big hand in missions and leading teams all over the world, and people say you're a missions pastor of a rather large church, and sent teams, like I said, all over the world and done some incredible things. But could you have imagined that? I don't know what the date was, but before you got saved, and take us back to those moments, and let's tell that story a bit.
Well, my day was the Monday before Easter, 1984. That was the day. Most people know Phil Robertson. Watched him on a message 2 nights ago on YouTube, and he said, it's the first birth that gets you to the earth, and it's the second birth that gets you off the earth. And I was like, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's Phil Robertson,
Nice.
Duck Commander. So, my second birth was the Monday before Easter, 1984, and I always tell people, that you need to know your testimony. You need to know your testimony where you can literally share it in 3 minutes or less, because that's about all the time that people are going to give you these days. But then there's also that extended one when you have opportunities that are uninterrupted and you can sit and talk and chat. So I'll go kind of halfway in between those for all of us today, and those 2 people that are watching.
Yeah.
But I start out and say, that in my life I was not a good leader, but I was a great follower. And because of that, early in life, I began to follow the wrong people. I wasn't raised in church. My family didn't go to church. That's not disrespect towards my mom or dad. They've openly heard my testimony and agree with it. But we didn't go to church. They didn't take me to church. I remember going to church with my grandma. She did. And what I loved about going to church with grandma is that she'd give me a quarter to put in the offering plate and a peppermint. Hands down, I'm going every time. I get a quarter to put in the plate, the peppermint to chew on. It was a great day.
I was wondering if you put the peppermint in the offering plate.
Kept the quarter.
Yeah.
No. And so that was my church exposure and all that. So didn't raise up and all that. It started following the wrong crowds. But one thing my dad did teach me, he taught me how to work really hard.
Mm-hmm.
He taught me what hard work was. My dad was a bricklayer for many, many years of his early life, and I remember going with him as a young kid. I can vaguely remember going with him, and but he worked hard. His dad was a carpenter, my grandfather, so they knew how to work hard, and Dad taught me how to work hard at a young age. My first job, 12 years of age, I was literally hauling bundles of shingles, roofing shingles, on my shoulder, climbing a ladder for $1 an hour, 12 years of age.
You think of that today, it's 100 degrees outside. That's just
I know.
it's a hard job, yeah.
Yeah. So I learned how to work hard, and because of that, fast story, I got into Sonic drive-ins. I started as a cook, and fast forward, I bought a franchise to a Sonic drive-in when I was 19 years old.
Wow.
In Southeast Texas, and started making a lot of money. So I graduated high school when I was 17, and I bought my drive-in when I was 19. I didn't need to go to school, right? So I didn't. I don't have a college degree.
You're king of the world though, 19 and
19 owned a franchise to a Sonic drive-in.
yeah.
At that time there were less than 200 drive-ins nationwide, and so we started opening a whole lot of drive-ins. I was very fortunate to be in some of the founding fathers of Sonic were my partners, the Kinslow brothers. So got to know the right people at the right time. It's just that kind of stuff. Even though I didn't know the Lord, I know now that He was ordering my steps, right? Mm-hmm. And but what happened was I was exposed to things that are habit forming really early in my life through my parents. Cigarettes, alcohol. I was the resident bartender in our home, and I would always fill those drinks up extra full because I knew carrying it back to mom and dad, I needed to take a little sip.
Yeah.
And took a liking to all those things. And then in 7th grade, I got exposed to marijuana first time. Buddy of mine went out and bought, in those days they had wooden matchboxes, thicker ones than they are today. And you could buy a wooden matchbox of marijuana for $2. And he went and bought some, and we did the only good thing that a friend would do for another friend. We ratted him out, okay? So we went and told his mama, man, Daddy, he bought marijuana, oh my gosh. And he got in trouble. The problem was the next day, we bought the matchbox of marijuana, very next day.
Yeah.
So not a good leader, good follower. By the Sonic, that allowed me funds to advance the habits. Fast forward, age 25, found myself a $3,000 a month cocaine addict, paranoid, schizophrenic, gun carrying, kicking doors down in the inside of my home because thought people were in those rooms, literally climbing in the attic of my house, looking for figments of my imagination. Would string monofilament string around the perimeter of my home, thinking people were stalking my home. Would tape my doors and windows to make sure no one was coming in and out of my doors and windows when I wasn't there. Really bad stuff. But I was functioning. Very functioning, in business and all that kind of stuff. And finally just got to the end, and I said, wait a minute, I've tried everything. I got money. I've got a home I'm buying. I've got a brand new kid, a couple months old. I've got an awesome wife who sticks by my side. I've got, I order my cars from the factory. I was president of the Sonic Advertising Cooperative for our area, had all this stuff. And I said, I've got all this stuff, but there's something missing. And then I used this phrase in my mind. I said, there must be something more to life that I'm experiencing.
Yeah, all the stuff that everybody chases all the time wasn't enough.
Wasn't enough. Money, fame, fortune, experiences. I had it all, at 25 years of age. And yet there was something just missing. I don't know who it was that said, the first person that ever said it, that there is a God-shaped hole in every person's heart.
Yeah.
Meaning that God's the only one that can fill up that empty space.
Yeah.
So in essence, that's what I said. There must be something more to life than I'm experiencing. I went to Karen and I said, don't know where this came from. And I said, we should try church. Let's go to church. Didn't know where. We literally started calling people and saying, do you know a church that we could go to?
Wow.
And it happened to be that one of her sisters said, you ought to go to that Calvary Baptist Church in Beaumont, Texas. Sounds good. First recommendation we've had. So we went, and it happened to be Palm Sunday, 1984 was the first Sunday that we went. We went, normal deal, didn't know what to do, and came home that afternoon. I remember telling Karen when I came home that afternoon, I just feel better, thinking I did something good for God.
Yeah.
I feel better. I'm on His good side now.
Yeah. I showed up.
Yeah. Well, the next day, I got off from work, and I lived about 30 minutes across town from where my Sonic was, and drove home. It was about 7:30 at night, and drove up. There was a strange car in front of my house. That's nothing different. Everybody always coming, buying and selling, right? So I go up and open the front door, and about that time remembered that I had forgotten something across town at the drive-in. I was going to have to go back and get it, and I wasn't happy. So I opened the door and let out a string of cuss words, only to look on my couch and to see two guys sitting there, and I'm like, those guys are not here to buy or sell dope. That's church folks. You know church folks?
Yeah.
You can spot them anywhere.
Yeah. Were they wearing a tie?
Oh, I don't know what, but you can spot church folks. Yeah. You can spot them anywhere. And that's another podcast.
Yeah.
How to spot church folks.
Gotcha. Professionals.
Yeah. So anyway, Andy Bunn began it. He said, just started sharing with me. They were out doing Monday night visitation. And he asked me a question, Doug, do you have a full and a meaningful life? And I said, no, I don't. I didn't stutter at all. No, I don't. Would you like to? Yes, I would. And he started reading a tract with me. Don't think that tracts don't work. It worked for me, and they are still a useful tool even today. And he started reading a tract that was called How to Have a Full and Meaningful Life. And worked through every bit of that. And, Andy talked to me about how the Bible says that I'm a sinner, and I totally agreed with that. And then he just worked with me. Basically, it was a Roman road kind of process that, I'm a sinner. Jesus died for my sin, and if I'll just confess him, that he'll accept me, and worked through all that. Got to the end, he said, so Doug, is there any reason why you would not be willing to receive Christ as your Lord and Savior? And I never will forget, I kind of sat up on my chair, and I said, Andy, you don't know me, and you don't know who I am. I can't do that. I can't accept Christ because you don't know who I am and what I've done. Never will forget when Andy did. First time I've ever met him, didn't know him before, but he said this statement. He said, Doug, I love you enough to tell you the truth. And the truth is that if you don't accept Jesus as your Savior, then you're rejecting him as your Lord. And I was like, whoa, wait, no, Andy, I'm smarter than that. I used that phrase. Mm-hmm. Andy, I'm smarter than that. I'm not rejecting him, because I was thinking about what are the consequences of rejecting God?
You just wanted him an idol for a little while. Yeah.
And I said, no, Andy, I'm not rejecting him. I'm just not ready. Mm-hmm. And he said, I understand. He went back and reviewed a little bit more, some stuff in the tract, and asked me again, would you like to receive Christ as Savior? And I said, yeah, I would. Bowed my head. He led me in a prayer. I don't know what the prayer said. In essence, I repented of my sin in my heart and asked Jesus to save me. And I always tell people, when I said amen, when I looked up, there weren't any marching bands marched down the street. There weren't any fireworks going off in the air, but something happened. Mm-hmm. And the something happened was that Jesus moved into my life and changed everything from that day forward. There's many things that I just like that whole story, that I'll never forget the rest of my life. A couple of aspects of it. When they left that evening, two things that are very vivid about that night. Number one, they never looked at my wife and said, so, Mrs. Sarver, what about you? Never did. Mm. They walked out, and my wife sat there and remained lost. I think for the next, I can't remember if it was 1 year or 2 years, that my wife remained as a lost woman. They never asked her. Second thing that I remember is when they left, she looked at me and said, I'm proud of you. And those are really impactful things. Mm-hmm. Out of that, my takeaways are, man, make sure that when you are sharing Christ with people, that it's a all-inclusive kind of idea.
Yeah.
All right? Because she would have been ready.
Yeah. And it's the good news. Like, why would you not give everybody the good news?
Even if she wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Right?
Share the good news.
Even if she wasn't ready, Now, she had seed sown into her life of the gospel because she was sitting there and heard everything that I heard. Mm-hmm. Second thing, even as a lost woman, she was proud of the spiritual decision that I'd made and supported that and followed that. So, I think in today's culture and society, there's a lot of opposition and there's a lot of tolerance and those kinds of things. So I think it's important for us not to say, just because somebody gets saved, everybody's going to hate you. Mm-hmm. I think that's a lie. I think there are lost people that go, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
I don't understand what you did, but I'm proud of you for making a positive, at least from their viewpoints, a positive decision. So, man, everything changed at that point. I remember going through a leadership class. I became a Sunday school teacher.
How long did that take?
Less than a year.
Oh, my goodness.
I never read the Bible. I went back to work. I told my assistant manager, who was a churchgoer, that I'd gotten saved. 2 or 3 days later, he brought me the first Bible that I ever owned, a hardback Bible he bought from his church for $5. $5 was a lot of money back in those days.
Yeah.
I'm an old guy. And Keith Cole, and Keith, hey, if you're watching, you remember giving me that Bible, you and your brother Rodney. They worked for me at Sonic.
Wow.
And Keith was I think Keith at that time was my assistant manager. Rodney also was my assistant at one time. But they gave me that Bible, and I just remember I'd never read one before, working a double shift, going home, reading the Bible, falling asleep with that Bible on my face. But it changed everything from that day forward. Went to that class, started teaching Sunday school, and the guy that mentored me, the youth pastor there at that time, now he's up in Philadelphia, planted a great church up there, John Cope. John taught me how to share the gospel. He taught me how to pray, taught me how to study my Bible, taught me how to teach. He gave me a Sunday school class of 7th grade boys. This is hilarious. 7th grade boys. And in those days, he gave me what they called a paper class.
Uh-huh.
That meant you can start a Sunday school class. Now, here's a sheet of paper with a bunch of names on it. These 7th graders, they don't go to church, but they have visited this church at least once, so they're your prospect list.
Mm.
So here's your prospect list. Now, fill your room up. Go get them.
Wow.
And that's how we started a Sunday school class. And I'd go out on Monday nights, go do visitation, and invite those 7th grade boys to come to Sunday school. Well, anyway, he started that class, and he seeded it with 2 guys, so I wouldn't be in there with the roaches by myself, right?
Yeah.
But here's who he gave me. Thanks, John. He gave me the pastor's son, one of the pastor's 4 sons.
Oh, he was bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Corrupt.
Yeah.
Brandon, if you remember, I saw you. Brandon Thomas, and then the chairman of the deacon's son.
Oh, my
Okay,
goodness.
Trey Bledsoe.
So they're in it together. Those.
Okay, that first week, the first lesson ever, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I don't know the Bible and all that. I studied. And I'm like, man, I'm ready. We're going to give it to them on Sunday. Got in that little old room, about the size of the studio here, and I had 2 chairs against the wall, and I pulled my chair up, knee to them, and I'm like, I got a captive audience. I'm teaching that lesson. I'm teaching, and I'm teaching Noah in that burning bush. And boy, Noah, whenever he encountered God, Noah was with that burning bush, and that burning bush impacted Noah for the rest of his life. And those guys are just kind of looking at me with tilted head and all that. And finally, the pastor's son, he says, Doug, wasn't that Moses? I went, yeah, but the names don't really matter.
Yeah.
It's the principle we're talking about today.
Right. saved it, by the way. That saved it. Yeah.
I recently saw Brandon, actually just a couple of weeks ago. I ran into him in Dallas, and I recounted this story. He said, actually, Doug, the names
They matter a little bit, yeah.
They matter a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyway, man, God called me to ministry a couple years later through a short-term mission trip that I went on to Brazil.
Wow.
Went on a Brazil mission trip in 10 days, had to write 10 sermons, didn't know what a sermon was. I wrote 10 sermons. I was the preacher in a little church that I have since gone back and visited. In that...
how far along was that in your...
I got saved in 84, and I went there in 89.
Okay. So like
5 years. Yeah, maybe a little bit less than 5 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, right.
What's cool, I don't want to rabbit trail too far, but just the thought came to me, what's cool about that is like, you don't have to know everything before you turn around and share the good news again.
One step.
Yeah.
You are a disciple maker at one step in front of the next person, literally.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to share the gospel, but I went out on Monday nights and I was with John Cope, and he said, you watch me and do what I do. Okay. You know, the next week, oh, by the way, Doug, I can't go with you tonight, but here's 2 names and addresses. Go do what we did last week.
Wow.
You know.
When those people learned about Noah and the burning bush.
They learned. They can tell that story just like me. Yeah, so
that's cool.
You know, and then
and so that was your first missions trip then to Brazil?
Very first one.
And so did it get in your blood? What was that like? What do you remember from that trip?
I was at a men's retreat, and they passed the brochures down the aisle talking about this mission trip. And I remember my heart started pounding as I watched those brochures come my way down the aisle, and I grabbed one, and I'm like, what am I feeling? I didn't know how to process this. During the break, I went to my pastor. I said, I think I was supposed to go on this. I don't know what's going on inside of me. He said, man, if God's speaking to you, let's just pray about it, and we'll, and figure it out. So, yeah, it was. God called me. We went 10 days over there, saw 5,000 people come to Christ.
Wow.
During that trip, God spoke very clearly to me, and he said, Doug, if you can do this 5,000 miles away from home, why can't you do it in your own backyard?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes. And, then Brandon, our life and my life has been hinged on Acts 1:8, which is, in essence, what God said. Why can't you do this in your own backyard, your own Jerusalem?
Yeah.
And we know Acts 1:8, it literally says, and you will be my witness beginning in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Judea, Samaria, ends of the earth.
Your backyard, your neighbor's backyard.
Your family.
Yeah, yeah.
Start sharing the gospel with your family first. I mean, I have many different ministry philosophies. One of them is that we earn the right to go abroad.
Mm-hmm.
That if I'm not sharing the gospel with my own family members, what gives me the right to go to Iraq?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't seem right. And then it is beginning in Jerusalem and all this. And I'm not saying it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 step and method, because that meant a little something different in the context of which it was spoken when Jesus spoke it versus today.
Yeah.
Right? You and I, this broadcast can literally go around the world and get to the ends of the earth, and somebody hear a testimony and go, I need to be saved.
Yeah.
And me and you never left Northwest Arkansas.
Right.
So anyway, yeah.
But it's in your DNA, no matter where you're at.
That's right. That's right.
If it's not in your DNA here,
it's
not going to magically be in your DNA somewhere else.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was a 2-year process of me understanding God's call to the ministry. Struggled through it for 2 years, and I won't go into that whole story, but at the end of that, a buddy of mine who also was a business owner, and God was calling, and I called Bill Morgan. I said, Bill, man, I'm just talking and struggling with this. He said, Doug, have you prayed and asked God if he's calling you to the ministry? And I said, no, I have not.
I don't want the answer.
I am not doing that.
Yeah.
Bad advice. I'm going to the next guy.
Yeah.
Isn't that how we do it?
Yeah, some people.
When we get the advice that we don't want.
Oh, that wasn't from
that's not from God. I'm going to go to this next guy.
Yeah.
So I said, no, I hadn't. He said, Doug, he said, when I started seriously praying and asking God, he answered it. And I never will forget, in my home in Texas at that time, I was there at lunch, and I just bowed my head just so sheepishly and just scared. And I said, God, are you calling me to the ministry? Yes. I mean, it was just like...
It was like, I've been waiting for you to ask.
It was just immediate. It was almost audible. And it was like, oh my gosh. But there was such a relief.
Yeah.
Such a relief. And, and then...
you still own your business at that time?
Yeah. Still own the business. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't shared any of this with Karen. So, I knew that was going on. There'd been some sermons leading up to it. They were adding to the, oh gosh, God's doing something here. So here's what happened with Karen and I, for all you guys out there that are dealing and struggling with this, with your special other one, your husband, your wife, etc. So I tell people all the time, so we'd been to church, and man, it was at that time, God spoke, we'd been to church, another message, I'm like, he's speaking directly to me. So we got home from church, got the two boys down to bed, and we were getting in bed, and I always tell people that brave man that I am, in the cloak of darkness, when those lights were off, and we were laying in bed there together, Karen and I said, Karen, I think God's calling me to the ministry. She bolted up out of the bed, turned that light on, got in my face, and her first words were, I'm not moving. Her biggest fear was having to move away from her family, change homes, different city. I'm not moving. We had a little discussion. And at the end of that, she said, Doug, if God's calling you to the ministry, he's going to have to change my heart. And she said it with spite, just about like that. I said, Karen, it's okay. Let's just go slow. I don't know. We'll see what's happening. Went to work the next day, and about 10 a.m., the phone rang there at the Sonic. And I answered the phone. She said, Doug, God spoke to me.
Wow.
And she said, you do what God tells you to do, and I will follow you wherever God sends you. And just that quick, less than 12 hours.
Wow.
And that's really, literally how it's been in our marriage. We've been married 45 years now. And she'll tell you her ministry is to do whatever it takes to allow me to do what God's called me to do. And so, yeah, I did that. Shortly thereafter started working in the inner city there of Beaumont. I founded and directed a shelter for homeless families. Did some other stuff to get churches to work together on local mission projects and outreach events. And then my church had a position, and they hired me as the part-time missions pastor at Calvary Baptist Church. And shortly thereafter, it went to full-time. After I surrendered to ministry publicly, in those days you did that. You walked down the aisle, and the pastor said, there's Doug, and he,
Yeah.
I surrendered ministry publicly. 2 weeks later, my business, which had been on the market for 2 years, 2 weeks after I surrendered ministry, my business sold.
Wow.
And so now I'm free to do whatever God wants me to do. Now, I'll say this, financially, I lost money, and I didn't care. I actually owed money after the deal was all closed and everything, but I didn't care because I was going to do what God called me to do. And I literally put my push mower in the back of my car and started going around and knocking doors and mowing grass to support my family after I was called to ministry and before I got part-time jobs and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So God's unfolded it. I've only served at 2 churches, Calvary Baptist, for about 3.5 years, and now Cross Church in Northwest Arkansas for not quite 32 years, and my entire 40 years of Christianity and ministry has been in missions.
Yeah.
Long story.
The overarching theme I see there is like, start where you are. If you don't know where to go or have direction, just start where you are. Even from the missions like Jerusalem and on and out. was like you knew God called you and knew you were supposed to do something. So you just started in your own backyard and just found ways you can be impactful. I'd say I even love like helping other churches, which is a lot of what I do in my media missions work.
That's right.
Just find people and try to give a hand up, just how can I help you, and bring people together, and together we do amazing things for God,
Well, as I said, a man with mantras. One of them that I have that kind of summarizes what you just said there to help people, it goes like this, that it's the start that stops most people from doing great things for God.
Yeah. Because they don't know where to start.
God speaks to them, gives them a godly idea, gives them a vision, a godly vision. But they feel like if they don't have everything in place, well, I don't have the money, I don't have the resources, I don't know, I don't have the education, I don't have and they what and how a God vision to death.
Yeah. And
they never start. I understand. I've been an entrepreneur all my life, so when it comes to ministry, we don't have time for me to give the examples of things that God's called me to. I didn't have nothing. It's kind of like I explained to people when I came to Cross Church back then. It was First Baptist Church Springdale. It was the first time I ever moved churches. I didn't know you were supposed to ask questions like, "What's my salary?"
You just knew you were supposed to do it.
So I didn't ask that question.
Yeah. They loved you. Oh, you get a salary?
Oh, wow. I forgot about that one. $2 an hour.
Yeah.
What's my salary? Do I have an office? Do I have a secretary? How about this one? Do I have a telephone?
Yeah.
Do I have a budget? I didn't ask any of those questions. And here's the thing. Do I have anything? No. Do you know what I had when I came to Springdale? I had an assignment. And my assignment was to begin a missions ministry for then First Baptist Church of Springdale, what is now Cross Church. I didn't have all of these things. I had an assignment. Go begin a ministry. And, it's been said before that with Jesus in your heart and a Bible in your hand, man, you can plant churches to do ministry all over the world.
Yeah.
You don't need money, resources. God is waiting on the obedience of people. There's not a lack of God calling. There's a lack of us responding. Right?
Yes, right.
And it's like, just like this, I know because I know you, I've watched and followed you. You didn't start off with this studio and this equipment and all this kind of stuff.
I don't even have all the equipment we just talked about today.
No.
Yeah, we're just doing what we got.
Well, we're going to do what we can do.
Yeah. Yep.
And then when God sees obedience, God rewards obedience. God says, I gave you that vision, and you did what you could. I remember in a whole nother ministry, when I was arguing with God about starting something, I said, I'm one person, I can do this. And God just vividly said, Doug, you can do what you can do. Now go do it.
Yep.
And
he knows what he placed in your hand. It's not a shock to him either.
What do you have?
God, I only have this.
All I got is a stick.
Yeah, I know. You're telling God information right now? Yeah.
But there's an ocean out there. Okay, raise your stick up.
Yeah, I created the ocean. I'm aware. Yeah, yep.
So, just the whole obedience thing. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah. So there was no missions ministry at the church at that time at
No.
First Church or First Baptist Springdale.
No.
Wow. And so do you know any kind of numbers of where you're at today? I mean, they don't have the specifics, but like how many teams you sent and countries, and I know it's a lot.
I could look back and come up with a few of those different numbers. One of the numbers that I do know is that I've been able to be part of planting 179 churches in 31 years.
Wow.
Globally.
Yeah.
Many of those locally, national, international. Locally, we've planted 4 different cowboy churches, a couple different Spanish-speaking churches, 2 Anglo-English-speaking churches locally. It's all in Northwest Arkansas that God's allowed us to do in that regard. and allowed me to be part of raising up most of those leaders and discipling them every Tuesday morning, 6 a.m., meeting Doug's office. And
the nitty gritty, the grind.
Yeah. So,
but it's cool looking back on it too, as all that came from saying yes when you didn't have what you thought you needed, everything that you thought.
This year alone, for our fiscal year, which we just finished this past Sunday, we sent about 650 people somewhere on a short-term mission trip within that last 12 months fiscal year. And in the last 4 years, we've sent 11 people long-term missionaries and church planters, and I've got 4 more in the pipeline right now that we'll send out within the next year and a half or so.
Wow.
So God's good. It's fun. It's a lot of hard work, but it's fun.
Right. Well, that leads me to something I want to talk about with you too, and something that I love seeing and being a part of as well, and that's sending people. I mean, your first time was so impactful. What is it like to get to lead somebody on their first missions trip and see their reactions, and what is that experience like for you to be a part of that?
It truly is my life. I have a stated and written Doug Sarver life and ministry purpose statement, and it goes like this: mobilizing people to the greatest opportunity ever, the Great Commission. And that's just who God's called me to be and what I do, mobilizing people to the greatest opportunity ever, the Great Commission. So when I see that happen in people's life, it fulfills my purpose.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Makes me very, very happy. Watching someone who's never been a part of that before walk in and they're just biting their fingernails and they're going, I don't have the money, I'm not equipped, and is it safe and secure? Am I going to die and drink the water? And, all those things, right?
Right.
That we've been part of. But, Brandon, one of the common things that I hear with people going on these short-term mission trips, we'll be overseas and we'll be in a debrief session, or I'll be sitting under the stars with them one night after a great day of ministry. And they'll say something like, I feel so fulfilled.
Yeah.
I feel so good. It's different than anything I've ever felt before. What am I feeling? And I'll say, well, Joe, Susie, the reason is because during this period of time, you chose to strip away everything in your life and put it aside, turn off the white noise, and focus on one thing, the mission. And that's what God built you for.
Yeah. You're fulfilling what you're designed to do.
You're doing what God designed you to do, and that's why you feel so good about it.
Yeah.
It's not because, I feel so good because I got to hold that little orphan.
And I painted a wall.
Right.
We've all painted our walls.
I picked up trash around Iquitos, Peru.
Yeah.
No, it's because you're doing what God designed you to do. And Brandon, it doesn't matter if you're in full-time ministry or if you own a Sonic drive-in or if you're an accountant or a school teacher or a public official. If you're a born-again believer, God designed you to do one thing.
You have that calling. Yep.
That's it. You will be my witness.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you can either live your life feeling unfulfilled, and you can give a lot of money away and be unfulfilled. But if you want to be unfulfilled and give a lot of money away, I can tell you where it's place.
Yeah, well, yeah. We can get you some bank numbers.
We can help you be unfulfilled.
Yeah.
But helping people to do that is just incredible. Been all over the world and see people just weep. Hey, I'll tell you a story.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story about that. in the early days, we started working in Haiti in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
And we were working with a couple in our church who bought some land and ended up building a ministry over there called Joy House. And I was bringing a team for the first time. I went over there, and the contractor guy, a local guy named Wayne Ford, was going over there, and he was going to help us build that whole ministry center, about a 5,000 square foot ministry center and all that in Haiti. At that time, it was just the side of a hill. That's all it was. They had come through immigration, customs, and loaded up in the back of the vehicle for the ministry vehicle, which was an old bombed-out Ford F-150 with a headache rack on the back of it.
So they had the air-conditioned seats.
Yes.
Yeah.
So luggage just thrown in the back of the truck, and people hanging on that rack. And if you've ever been through the streets of Port-au-Prince, you know. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
And they're going through there, and you look over there at Wayne Ford. At that time, Wayne was probably in his mid-50s. And you look over there, and a big, burly construction guy all of his life, man's kind of man, and he's got tears just rolling down his face. First time out of the country. I said, "Man, Wayne, what's the matter?" And he said this phrase. He said, "We're too late." He had gotten out of the airport and saw that ocean of people and saw all this chaos of everything in downtown Port-au-Prince. And he didn't just see people in chaos, he saw lostness.
Yeah.
And he said, "We're too late. The gospel needed to be here a long time ago. We're too late." You know, that impacted me for all of these years, to hear things like that. We're too late. You know, and then on the other side of it, I've mobilized a lot of people, and they've gone on short-term trips with me, and they are somewhere in the ministry today. You know, they're working at churches. Some of them are missionaries with other mission organizations. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, like so when you set aside all the distractions, it's a lot easier to hear from God, and a lot of life changes happen. That's the same thing that would tell people, like, I'd go to church camp, you know, like people meet their spouse a lot of times at church camp, or they're, you know, just really big life change, or get called to ministry or any of that kind of thing. Same thing with missions. It's like you're on this cool thing and you're like, wow, once it's in your blood.
Yeah.
You may not become a missionary, but you may say, well, I have a business and I'm going to make sure I send missionaries. I'll always be a part of trips, or how do I use what God's put in my hands to fulfill this calling, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so you're a funny guy.
Yes, yeah.
You know, you like to have fun, right? I think.
That's what I hear anyway.
Exactly. You've got whole TikTok and YouTube channels that are based on fun, funny.
I got a wife that rolls her eyes at me. Yeah,
okay.
You know, typical funny guy, right?
Okay, so here's one. You ever have any funny experiences on missions? Huh. Yes, we did.
You're gonna have, just
you're going
around it. Yeah.
Right. So here we are. We're headed off. I don't remember where we were going. Actually, it would have either been Ukraine or Brazil. I'm not going to name this person to try to protect them. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're at XNA Airport, you know, and I'm like, and it was one of the early morning flights. Oh, everybody be here at this time. We'll all check in together. And so we get there, and I'm waiting. Everybody's finally, okay, guys, everybody line up, grab your stuff. We're going to line up and check in, because we bought group tickets and those kinds of things. We're standing up there, and, you know, one of the last people to check in there, I stand there with each person one by one, make sure there's no problems. One of the last persons, the lady, she stands up there and she throws her passport down. Okay, Miss So-and-so, great. All right. Okay, this, that, and the other. Said, do you have any luggage that you're going to check? And she looks at me and she goes, I forgot my luggage.
Oh my gosh. Did she at least pack it? She just drove off at her house.
She forgot her luggage at her house.
Wow.
Packed it up, so excited the night before, put it by her front door so that when she exited, she, you know,
going straight to
her friends came over that morning, because she's a single adult, and she's so excited. my first mission trip.
Let's go.
Let's go. Party on. Yeah. And goes all the way and forgets her luggage. So we did a bucket brigade kind of thing to where we finally got it there. And I told her, I said, we're sending the team on. And if it comes through, you can give it to them. If they'll take it, we'll see you on the plane. She made it on the plane. Everything worked out by the skin of our teeth. Wow. But anyway, that was kind of a fun and an interesting
People don't think about that, too, because you send a lot of teams that all the just logistics that go into it, and everybody needs a passport.
I've been there in the old days where we used to have paper tickets. I've had people show up at the airport without their tickets. Like, oh, my gosh, I left it on my nightstand or whatever and that. One guy, we were actually going to Ukraine. I keep mentioning Ukraine. We were going to Ukraine, and we were waiting on his passport. And we were UPS tracking it, and they actually delivered it to the airport. And we had people, I know you work gate agent and all that kind of stuff. We had people faking all kinds of illnesses and
trying to hold the plane out.
Trying to hold just to keep. And they like, last call, doors closing. And the guy finally, he made it on the plane. And the whole plane, everybody, now if you've ever traveled before, if you do that and you're the last person on, everybody inside that plane is like giving you
you're the one we've been waiting on.
The stink eye.
Yeah.
Man, you're dead.
Right. Oh, my gosh. Oh, man.
Yeah.
And then let's see, what else? You've, you used to be a drug dealer when you were younger, and I guess you still given out Ambien on one of your trips too, right?
Yeah, I did.
Tell me about that story.
I did. We were in Malawi, Africa, and I had John Cope. I'll go ahead and give his name, the guy that discipled me, now pastor in Philadelphia. At Keystone Church in Philadelphia.
So you got a free plug, please.
Yeah,
you're going to tell
exactly.
a bad story.
You're going to church in Philly, you're going over there, and they've got a couple different campuses. So we're there, and he hadn't slept the first couple of days. You know, that's a long way.
Yeah. And you flip your hours.
Hours, and even though you have jet lag, it's weird how that works, how sometimes jet lag actually causes you're so tired, but you can't go to sleep.
Yeah.
And second, third day, I said, John, man, look, I've got some Ambien. He had never taken it before. Man, give me one. I got to try anything. So I gave it to him. Then I forgot to say.
Only take half of that.
Only take half of it.
Yeah.
And secondly, take it about 10 minutes before you're going to close your eyes because you're tapped out.
Yeah.
I gave it to him, and I don't know when, I didn't watch him, but he took it, and we're in the room there, and there's 3 or 4 bunks in this room, and I'm watching John, and he's just
falling out. Everything's getting slow, yeah.
And he's just and he's talking and slurred and telling stories, and whoever else was in the room, we're looking at each other going,
"What's wrong with you?" Yeah.
And finally, I realized. He's Ambien drunk.
Yeah.
He took that pill I don't know how long ago.
He's trying to function.
I won't talk about his wardrobe.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that was probably...
It was not all buttoned up, though. That way.
Yeah. So, yeah, and the Ambien things, that's, they can be really, really, really good, but...
Yeah, you got to be careful with
that. That was really funny to watch him stammer around there.
I would have given him one and let him take it and go, wait.
You would.
Yeah. You can save that one for next time.
Yeah.
You can pull that on.
That was my wife's birthday.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I could keep going with that one, but I don't want to.
We got to keep it
far
ready.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Let me think. Oh goodness. I remember one time. I'll also do that sometimes on those long trips because just sleeping on a plane. That's another thing you learn too. Is like not all of us get lay flat seats. Just in case, I don't know if you know. There's a back part of the plane that everybody else has to sit.
A what?
Yeah. People have to sit up like this for like hours and hours. I didn't know if you knew that. They don't all get the.
When I'm teaching and training, I always tell people they'll all be like, "Yeah, well, after we eat, I'm going to recline my seat and go." So I said, "Well, here's how you need to know it. This is your seat in the upright and locked position.
Yeah,
and this is reclined.
Reclined, yeah.
So, yeah.
But, you learn if you can or can't sleep. Some people don't, but with same thing, kind of Ambien or whatever sleeping pill. I remember one time taking off out of Brazil. Actually, we were in the very last row. It was me and another buddy, and we had an empty next to us. Which, if you don't know, if you're in the back, actually, so you actually have to rub elbows with people and stuff. That's another thing that happens in the back. Wow. And so if you get an empty next to you, it's just like such a blessing, You're like, oh, elbow room. Oh, thank goodness. So it was me, empty seat, and friend. And so we had the middle, like 3 seats in the middle of the plane. The very back, like bathrooms behind us. Mm-hmm. And so we took off and took that pill, ate our dinner, and then, of course, you feel it kicking in, and you're just like, oh, here we go. And I remember waking up, and they were like, this is probably like a 10-hour flight, I think.
To Brazil?
Yeah. Where you're going.
What year it was and what kind of plane, how fast?
Yeah. Well, see, I can't go back as far as you, but so it was only, within 10 years. But
yeah, going there, coming back, jet streams.
Yeah, all that. So 8 to 10 hours. It's a significant flight.
Right.
And I just remember, finally waking up, and they were saying, all right, everybody, put your tray tables up and buckle up. We're about to land. Like, wow. We landed in Atlanta, like that was fast, and the flight attendant came back and she saw me and my friend. She's like, "Yeah, y'all were just not any trouble at all for me. Y'all were good passengers." Like, thanks. So we just, that's the way to do it sometimes.
Yeah, that's a whole new podcast. Is these tips and tricks for travel and preparation, how to pack
long flights,
how to deal with it all, because we have. You earn your stripes in the back.
Yeah,
man, you earn your stripes.
Better get you some compression socks.
Oh, I've got every gadget. I got an attic full of gadgets.
Yeah, just some earbuds and play some worship music and try to pretend you're anywhere else while you're waiting it out. But so that's cause for some interesting things. Recently, one of my trips was to the other side of the world, and responding to the earthquakes in Turkey and the Syrian border and all that stuff. And I know you guys there was another massive earthquake in Haiti, which you've been working there before that earthquake. But you probably have some interesting stories from your time seeing Haiti and the earthquake that happened there, right?
Yeah, that was those who have participated in mass disaster relief.
It's a different trip.
It doesn't matter if it's an earthquake, a fire, a hurricane, a war. It's very, very, very eye-opening, and it'll arrest your soul. Mm-hmm. So yes, we know that the earthquake happened there in Haiti, and just a few days after it happened, we were over there because at that time we had a church member, and his brother was a brigadier general with the Dominican Republic Army. He went on to be the number 2 man, Ruben Paulino. And so Ruben got us hooked up with a convoy, UN convoy, that was bringing supplies from Dominican to Haiti. I had a private airplane that we had arranged coming out of Birmingham and carrying medical supplies, and we were going to meet them down in Dominican in Barahona because Barahona had jet fuel. Mm-hmm. And so they could fly into there, drop off the medical supplies, and get fueled up and go on home. Whether they were delayed about 3 days.
Wow.
So I'm there and had a team. Wayne Ford was one of them returning, going to go back, and had a security guy with me and the owners of the ministry center, some other. So I said, look, y'all go on across and go on into Port-au-Prince area where the ministry center is. I got to wait here. So General Paulino hooked me up with, he put an attaché with me, Lieutenant Polanco. Mm-hmm. And Polanco spoke no English, and I spoke no Spanish. And they put us on the Army base in Barahona, And I slept and lived with those guys for 3 days in their barracks. They found an empty bunk, and it was interesting to say the least.
So you had some great dinner conversations.
Right.
Is what you're saying.
Fortunately, in those days, if you remember, I don't know what version it was, but we did have iPhones.
Oh.
Was it an iPhone, or did I have a Trio at that time? If anybody remembers the Trios.
What year was that? 20.
You're going to get me to lie.
And to 2012, somewhere there.
Yeah, so I think it was iPhones we had by that time. So I could use, I was using some Google Translate software on that, but then I would call my Spanish pastor here in Springdale and I'd say, Carlos, you got to tell this guy what's up. I can't put up with him anymore. Tell him here. And that's how we lived for 3 days. And I'm just frustrated because I'd get the news, delayed on the airplane. And I'm like, we got to get these supplies. We got to get out of here. And
so you're in the Dominican at that point.
I'm in Dominican at that time.
For people that don't know, your listener watching this, Dominican and Haiti are the same island. It's just they're two sides. So one country's over here and one country's over here.
Correct.
So you're close, but so far away.
Yep. And if you are looking at the map of Dominican and Haiti, the island of Hispaniola, Santo Domingo would be here, and then you go to the left. Some people say that that's not the south, but you ask Dominicans, and that is the south. Headed in that direction, you go down, and you'll hit Bani, Azua, Barahona, Oviedo, Pedernales is the border, or Oviedo, and we went up to Jimini, which is also the border. 2 spots on the Haiti border where you can drive across and cross over. So at Barahona is where we were waiting, and from Barahona to the border is another 2.5 hours, I guess, by vehicle. So we're waiting there, and I'm just panicking. And old Lieutenant Polanco, he finally he had enough of me. He grabbed me by the shoulder. He goes, Pastor, tranquilo.
Calm down. Yeah.
To this day, Lieutenant Polanco and I have a relationship. And every time I go, I'll holler at him.
Say tranquilo.
And that's all I do. I'll pick up WhatsApp, and I'll either text him or I'll voicemail, hey, Polanco, tranquilo. Pastor.
I know you are. That's so great, yeah. So you're able to eventually get stuff in, though, right?
We got stuff in. The plane came. We were able to get everything through customs and all that, and loaded back up. We actually slept overnight because we didn't get to the border. The plane came late afternoon. We didn't get to the border till it was getting dark. Myself and a buddy of mine in the ministry, Craig Miller, who's now in heaven, unfortunately, at a young age, he went to see Jesus. But he and I were together, and at that time they had all the military and the press was staged at the Dominican side border in the old palace of the dictator Trujillo. And we actually slept in there one night. That's another crazy story. Craig Miller, he was crazy for the gospel. He would do crazy stuff, and he loved to chase disaster relief. He loved that kind of ministry. So he was there. Actually, the medicines we were bringing over, he was going to be using.
Wow.
And we slept overnight there, and we were in the room with the press, which was, I think it was probably a 12 by 12, cement floor, cement walls, and you go and try to steal you a blanket. If you were fortunate enough to get a 2-inch thick piece of foam to sleep on, then you did that, and we're sleeping there. Middle of the night, Craig is just sawing logs, loudest I've ever heard anybody snore in my life. And there was this old man in the room, and he got sick and tired of it. And Craig would be just tearing up. That old man would sit up, and he'd just start clapping his hands. And Craig, wake him up. And about 3 minutes later, it'd be back. That went on all night long.
Oh.
And finally, about 4 a.m., Craig got tired of it. He jumps up. I ain't getting any sleep. I can't get any sleep.
None of us are.
He went and slept in the van. There, all of us in the room were going,
so faithful, yeah.
We didn't get any sleep either.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. So the Dominican, that's where someone walked into your room in the middle of the night, too.
Yeah. I was there in the area called Paraíso, and at a little Hotelito Oasis, and it was up on that ledge, and it wasn't much. Had a great view, but it wasn't much. Up there, another Ambien kind of deal. I'd taken an Ambien, and I knew I was going out
for the night, yeah.
I intentionally going to go to sleep, and I'm laying there, and I'm at that time, and disclaimer, we are not Ambien addicts.
Yeah. The tool that...
My doctor checks me out and prescribes that stuff for me. And literally, I just got a renewal on it, and I looked on the label, and it had been 3 years.
Yeah.
So I break them in half. The only time I use them is to reset my clock on big-time international stuff.
Yep.
But at that time, I just needed some sleep. I was wound up and from the work, and so I'd taken half of one and ready to go to sleep. And you're in that zone where you're awake, but you know you're going to sleep. You're aware, and I hear, and I'm like, yeah, people are walking outside. It's about midnight. People walking outside because it's concrete and everything, and it's terraced, so you can hear steps and what have you. And then it got a little louder. Yeah, they're coming closer, but that's okay. There's rooms all over around there. And they got really, really close, and I'm like, I kind of sound like somebody's outside my room, but there was a door right next to my room, so they could be going into that one. All of a sudden, I hear a key
in your door
going into my door. And these are not hotel rooms like Holiday Inn, okay? These are wooden doors, exterior with old school locks. And you don't have the little fancy chains and all of that, because I got a lot of comments like that when I posted it. People are like, well, why didn't you put that little lock on there? And I'm like, okay, look, guys, I paid $7 a night for this room.
Right.
I overpaid by about $6.50 a night.
Yeah.
Okay. But so key in there and door and walk into my room, and I'm Ambien drunk, and I just remember setting up and screaming like a little girl.
I wish we had video of that.
And my thought process was,
Freak them out, maybe.
if I'm going to get killed, I want somebody to hear it.
Yeah, true.
I don't want the maid to find me in the morning in a bloody pool.
Right.
I'm like, I want somebody to hear me going out. I screamed bloody murder. And I was like, oh. It didn't matter. The effect of the Ambien was gone at that point. I stayed awake the rest of the night.
Oh my goodness. Was he going to the wrong room? Or
They gave him the wrong, because the next morning I asked about it. I'm like, hey, somebody came in my room in the middle of the night. He said, oh yeah, he came back. Sorry, we gave him the wrong room.
Oh my goodness. What was it? Did you see any of his reaction, or was he in the dark?
No. He slammed the door real quick and ran off.
Oh,
so it was an honest mistake.
Yeah.
But if it would have been in the U.S., he'd got, I don't know, beat up with a chair or worse.
Yeah. All depends on what you got with you, right?
You use what you got.
Yeah, exactly.
Hit it with your toothbrush.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my goodness. So tell me about you were going into Haiti, going back to the serious side of things, but what did you see, and what kind of, you're used to responding to, third world countries and devastation in a different kind of manner, but what was that like to just see? Tell me what you saw and kind of what was going through your head initially. And
yeah, literally in that moment, Haitians, would say that they didn't have anything at all to begin with. Now they had less of nothing, and hope was included in that. There was hopelessness. We're done. Even Christians, we've been abandoned, and probably the most arresting moment for me, I can close my eyes and I can see it right there on that hillside. And we were assessing damage, and a Haitian man saw us, Anglos, Americans, we're easy to spot.
Mm-hmm.
And he walked up to us with his baby girl and begged us to take his child. You're like,
just so she'll have a chance at a better life.
Yeah. And I just never will forget that. Just think, he's willing to give away his child because he's lost hope, and there's no hope, and
wow,
this child's not going to have anything. So,
Where do you even start with a situation like that? Like, you're just going in thinking like it's a piece of sand on a beach, like what we can do.
It is. And Doug, you can do what you can do. Now go do it,
Yeah.
I always tell people that, benevolence ministry, compassion ministry, it has a two-sided coin. It's a two-sided coin. And one side of that coin says, you can't help everybody. You know, you're on the street and you see someone asking for money. You're in a church, someone comes in, wherever your situation is. You know, the one side of the compassion, the benevolent side of the ministry coin is that, you know, you can't help everybody.
Yeah.
We have to understand that it's okay.
You know, your heart is, but...
What did Jesus say? Do you remember what Jesus said about that? The poor, you'll have with you always.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They're always going to be here. So the one side of the coin is you just can't help everybody. However, as a believer, as a born-again follower of Jesus, believer, the other side of that coin says this: you can help everyone. And so, Brandon, I believe that the way we can help everyone in those compassionate moments, like, would you take my daughter? Or would you give me money for gas? Or would you give me food? Or would you whatever? We can help every single person. And here's how we do it as a compassionate, born-again Christian. Number one, I can be compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've lost our compassion in the world.
Yeah.
Maybe even as Christians, as jaded Christians.
Yeah.
We've lost our compassion. We've lost our ability to look at the person standing on the side of the road with a sign, and our first thought is, he's a ripoff. She's lying. Instead of, what could I do, and how could I show compassion? Because Jesus would show compassion, right? Matter of fact, that's how God describes himself in Psalm 103. He says, I am compassionate.
Yeah.
Slow to anger. So we can help everyone.
That's anti-American, slow to anger.
Yeah. We can help everyone by being compassionate. We can help everyone because I can pray.
Yeah.
I have a heavenly Father who cares about everyone. He probably cares about those people more than he cares about me. That's not true, but you understand what I'm trying to say.
The value is no less. Yeah.
Equally valued in the eyes of God.
Yeah.
And you know what? If I'm truly a follower of God, well, why do I want to cast doubt on everything? Why do I want to be judgmental? Why do I want to be those things? Why can't I just say, you know what? I can give them something what no one in any of these cars behind me is going to give them. I can pray for them.
Mm-hmm.
I can ask God to discern the situation. I can ask God to supply for what their genuine need is.
Yeah.
And if it's not money, it's for mental healing.
Mm-hmm.
I can ask God to do that. So when we're faced in those kinds of things and missions around the world, you know what? You just can't help everyone.
Yeah.
But you can help everyone.
Right.
So that was our approach with this gentleman, was to say, sir, we cannot take your child, and I understand you're wanting to give her a better life. We can pray for you, and we can ask God to provide for your needs and those things. And we did. We sat there, right there on that.
And God will be there after you're gone, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's right.
You're talking about, this kind of goes back to a little bit of a funny story that I hope you remember, because we wasn't planning to talk about it, but talking about people on the side of the road and stuff, and something that you get in some countries, you get pulled over and asked for, we call it T-money. A lot. People that, hello, how you doing, sir? Like, oh, it looks like you're visiting our country, and maybe your rearview mirror is a little off, or you. I think actually on one trip I was with you, someone had a hand out of a window.
Oh,
and that was enough to get pulled over. Which I'm pretty sure. I didn't look up the country's bylaws, but I'm pretty sure that's not in it.
That's a new podcast.
Yeah.
Things you can do in other countries to get pulled over by the police.
Yeah.
Okay, or detained.
That are not illegal, but because they feel like it. But I remember one story you were heading somewhere. I think it was in Malawi, but
yeah, it was. I know where you're headed.
Yeah. And some guy was. I think Christmas was coming up.
Yeah,
I think that was the scenario. So take us through what happened to that.
I was driving down the road, and I'd come through one speed trap, so I knew to be cautious, and In the cities, generally it's 50 kilometers per hour on speed limit. So, you're coming up. Sometimes, if you're fortunate, there'll be a sign. Many times you're just supposed to know.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of traffic, so it's like,
You're going to be
we're all
slowed
good.
down. Yeah.
So we're slowed down. I'm coming through. I'm looking. I'm 50. And I'm like, and all of a sudden the cop jumps out in the middle of the road, and they use white gloves. So you got a white glove. Whoop, and I'm like, I got the white glove.
Yeah.
What did I get the white glove for? What was I doing? He pulls me over, and I'm like, oh, what the heck? I wasn't speeding. Walk up, roll the window down. He walks up, and he just kind of leans up against the front side of the front fender and looks in. Hey, buona, boss. How you doing? Hey, man, doing great. Remember me? He says.
No.
I'm like, remind me.
Should I?
Remind me. He said, oh, up on top on the mountain. When you come through, I've worked up there. I said, oh yeah, when we come back from the lake, sometimes we'll come across the mountain there, and you work up at that stop. Yeah, that's me. How are you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. How are you? Hey, I'm going to the airport, fixing to go home. Oh, okay. Hey, boss, he says, it's Christmas.
Oh, Merry Christmas.
Christmas is coming. I'm like, it sure is.
Yeah,
It's been a couple of weeks or something.
Yeah.
I said, Christmas is coming. Yeah. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, boss. To all a good night. He said, yeah, and he just leans there. And I'm thinking, what's this guy? Would he just let me go? And finally he leans down, looks inside the car, and he goes, hey, how about a Christmas present for me and the boys? And I'm like, well, I don't have any Twix bars.
Yeah.
Or,
Something easy to hand out. Yeah.
a baseball or a mug or a soccer ball.
I'm sure money would do fine.
Yeah. How about a Christmas gift for me and the boys? I said, oh, well, yeah. Merry Christmas. That's what I can give you. Merry Christmas. Yeah. But
They want
it'd be really good for you to give me and the boys a Christmas gift. And then I remembered something really, that a week earlier on my way driving down on that same road, I had to pull over because the motorcade, the presidential motorcade was coming through from Lilongwe to Blantyre. And I asked what's going on. And then I happened to turn on TV, and the president was going to Blantyre to speak at and help conduct the global conference on corruption, anti-corruption.
yeah.
In their own city, which Blantyre, from where the cop had me pulled over, was about 4 hours away.
Yeah.
By car. And so I remembered that, and I told the guy, I said, hey, did your president come through here a few days ago? Oh, yes, he came through. He's very proud of it. Yes, he came through. I said, oh, that's good. Yeah, I was behind him in the motorcade there. I know he came through. He was going to Blantyre. Yes, he was going to Blantyre. I said, well, you remember what he was going to be at? No, I can't remember. I said, it was the Global Anti-Corruption Seminar. I just kind of stared at him. Oh. I said, sir, I'm a pastor, and I'm sorry. I can't give you and the boys any kind of Christmas present, but here's what I can do. I can pray for you. Can I pray for you? And in his normal style, he takes that police hat off and still stands to attention. Yes, you may pray.
It changes the whole world there.
Jesus bless him. God, no. And I just went, bye, put it in gear and went. Yeah. It's just nut stuff. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And another one, when you said T-Money, we were going back to the airport. It seemed like I always happened to be going back to the airport. I had me and a couple other guys, and I'm driving. I'm going into town, just getting into the edge of the long way going to town. And I thought, man, I want to call the bus driver and thank him for a good week, and before I get out of here. So pick up my cell phone. I'm driving, and I'm just, hey, great job. Thank you so much for everything. Once again, all of a sudden, out jumping out in the middle of the road, here comes a police woman with a glove. Oh, whoa! Almost ran over, pulls over, And she walks up. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, what's going on today? She said, "Oh, you're brocking the load." I said, "Oh, I'm brocking the load. Okay. Tell me about that. I'm brocking the load."
I need to know more.
"You're brocking the load?" And then all of a sudden I thought, in Malawi, for those of you Malawians who may be watching or listening, you know that L's are pronounced as R's and R's are pronounced as L's many times. So I remembered that. I said, "Oh, you're brocking the load. You're blocking the road." I said, "Oh, I'm blocking the road." Yes. I said, "I was driving." "No, you were on the telephone."
How does that? Yeah, how's that blocking?
"No, you were on the telephone. You're blocking the road because you were on the telephone." She said, "It is illegal to drive and be talking on the telephone. You're blocking the road." I said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know that was the rule. I won't do it again. We're going to the airport and we got to leave here in just a couple of, okay, thank you." "Oh, no, stop.
I wasn't good enough.
And by that time, the guys in the back had rolled their window down because they wanted to watch the comedy show also. And one of the guys lives here in Northwest Arkansas, guys in Conley Williams. He used to be an International Mission Board missionary in Uganda. He was over there helping me. He's an incredible agricultural missionary. And he was over there looking at some stuff. And she stepped back to the back of that truck, and she leans down and looks inside. There's Conley, and he's a stately-looking gentleman with a full head of white hair. And she looks in, and he's sitting there, and she looks down, and she goes, "Ooh."
Ooh. Thought he was kind of cute, huh?
And she said, "Ooh, I like that one."
Oh, you can have him. Just let him go.
Yeah, no, here, Conley, get out.
Yeah. Sorry, you didn't make the cut.
And I said, "Man, we have to go to the airport. Can we go there?" "Nope. You must pay the ticket." "Ma'am, please, can I go to the airport?" No. You're blocking the road, and you have to pay the ticket." I said, "Okay, can I just pay you right here, and you give me a receipt?" That is corruption. "No, ma'am, I don't want it to be corruption. I just want to pay so I can go to the airport.
Yeah,
We're going to miss
give it to who it needs to go to.
Yeah, we're going to miss our flight." "Nope." She said, "You can take me to the station. I will sit right there." She wanted to sit beside.
Oh my goodness.
So she gets in the back seat, sits beside Conley, and we go to the police station, which was 2 clicks away, and go in there. And fortunately, I follow her around there. We go to a little booth, and she said he was blocking the road on his cell phone, and I paid him a few kwacha, and I got an official receipt, and I'm out of there. Bottom line is, she wanted to flirt with a handsome man, and she needed a ride back to the police station. It was time for her to knock off.
You had a seat.
And she had a tea time.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Gosh, crazy stuff does happen on the mission field for sure.
It does. Gives memories, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you have, goodness, how many years have you been doing missions now?
40.
Yeah, so you have so many more stories to tell, so we'll definitely get you on. Because I know we have more stories even that we talked about, but I don't want to make this one even longer. But you'll come back to do another episode with us.
We'll always have some fun.
Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate you stopping by and taking time out of your day. And hopefully people get a kick out of these stories. But really what we want this podcast to do is for people to say, I want to go make my own story and say yes to whatever God is putting on your heart, or like with you, maybe they're watching this and they're saying something's not right, something's not being fulfilled, and there's something I need to say yes to. So hopefully all these stories combined will make an impact. That's all we do. We do with Mission Field Media in the podcast, and I appreciate you and your friendship and mentorship. You know, everybody has something to say about everything other people do, but you have a right to only allow certain people to talk into your lives, and you're one of the people I allow to speak into my life because I trust you and your ministry and your wisdom, and appreciate you taking the time to be on our podcast.
Thank you very much. I enjoy it.
Absolutely. Thanks again for joining us on the Mission Field Media Podcast. We so appreciate you taking your time to watch and listen to what God is doing all around the world through these missionaries and ministries. Please remember to subscribe to the channel. Find us on the social media app to follow us there. And tell all your friends about it. We couldn't do this without the listeners like you guys and our sponsors. Thank you so much, and looking forward to having you join us again on the MFM Media Podcast.